General Zahid, respected panelists, honorable ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a very bad time to be standing here between you and lunch, especially we have taken a lot of time already. So I'll try to squeeze in a bit because already better speakers have talked about the subject and a lot has been covered. When I was asked to speak on war on water crisis between India and Pakistan, I was a bit taken aback why an ambassador of peace is being asked to speak on war. And I thought maybe this event is going in that direction. But I'm glad to listen to the previous speeches. I think we have heard some very balanced and well-informed speeches on the subject. As you all know, water, probably after air, is the most crucial element for human sustenance. In fact, the sustenance of the entire planet itself. And of the all available water, only a fraction, that is 0.007%, is available for human consumption. So you can understand the importance of fresh water. It is depletable, unlike air. It can only be preserved, it cannot be generated. And on top of it, the increase in population and industrial growth has put pressure on it. It is said that about 25 million people are migrating annually around the world due to water scarcity, much higher than those migrating for any other reason, including violence or terrorism. The demand for fresh water continues to grow with the growth in human population. With approximately 90 million people born each year, it is said that 95% of population increase takes place in the developing countries. Increase in population proportionately increases the demand for food and other commodities, which places additional strain on water for uses like agriculture, industry, and household, etc. According to UNESCO, almost 1 billion people in the developing countries have inadequate access to water and 2.4 billion lack basic sanitation. A child born in the underdeveloped world consumes 30 to 50 times less water than the one born in the developed world. Global water consumption has risen sixfold during the last 100 years at more than double the rate of population growth, and therefore water tables are dropping steadily in several major food producing regions as groundwater is being pumped out at a rate faster than the rate at which nature can recharge it. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development calculates that by 2030, some 3.9 billion people, that is 47% of the global population, will be living in areas with high water stress, mostly in developing world. Insufficient water supplies can impair agriculture production, endanger public health, strain established settlement patterns, and jeopardize livelihoods and social well-being. All this leads to a competition for water resources and consequently friction and antagonism between the states. Historically, water disputes have not been violent. However, the depletion of fresh water at such an alarming rate has caused some analysts to predict that future wars will be fought over water rather than over oil and energy. Coming to South Asia, it is one of the poorest regions of the world with a plethora of problems. It has high population growth rate, which is taxing all its resources, and water is no exception. According to a World Bank report, there are some 20 major river basins across the region. Of these, the 4 largest are those of the Indus, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and Meghna, shared between the countries of South Asia as well as China. Climatic changes, rapid population growth, industrialization, expanding urbanization, and fast-growing water needs for irrigation and power generation are putting ever-increasing strains on these rivers. And to make matters worse, there is a perpetual animosity and lack of trust between the countries of the region, particularly with India, which shares river waters with 4 countries of South Asia. Now, most of us remember the picture of Liaquat Ali Khan with a clenched fist. I am told it was taken in April 1948 when he challenged India that if forced, Pakistan will not hesitate to go for war over water. I therefore accept the possibility of war over water. In any case, this remains a possibility between Pakistan and India, the kind of relations we maintain. But I am a student of peace and by training an optimist who believes that there is a solution to every problem provided there is a will. And in my opinion, the prime responsibility of scholars, especially the peace scholars, is not to contribute to war hysteria, but rather to provide solutions of hope and peace. So allow me to say that while water scarcity and possibility of war may be real, the hype is slightly unwarranted, and I'm glad that Chairman Wabda also pointed out to that. The situation is not as dismal as is sometimes being painted in the media. War, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, is possible, but not probable. And I'm not saying that out of rhetoric. The history of water dispute resolution, in contrast to that of conflict, is much more impressive. The United Nations has identified more than 3,600 treaties relating to international water resources, dating back to the 9th century to the 20th century, the majority of which deal with some aspect of navigation, because probably back then being able to pass through was more important. But then in the previous century, we have had 300 international treaties which were negotiated with non-navigational issues in mind. That is, like flood control or hydropower projects and allocations for consumptive or non-consumptive uses in international basis. Accounts of conflict related to water indicate, and this is very important, that only 7 minor skirmishes have occurred in last 1 century over water. No wars, unless you count the Kashmir issue in that also. In contrast, 145 water-related treaties were signed in the same period. We have examples from Europe and elsewhere where water has promoted cooperation rather than inciting war. War over water seems not to be strategically rational, hydrographically effective, or economically feasible. Shared interests along a waterway seem to consistently outweigh water's conflict-inducing characteristics. And once cooperative water regimes are established through treaties, they turn out to be impressively resilient over time, even between otherwise hostile riparian states and even as conflict is waged over other issues. And Indus Waters Treaty is a case in point. These patterns suggest that the most valuable lesson to be learned from the history of international water disputes is that this is a resource whose characteristics tend to induce cooperation, inciting violence only as an exception. Indus Waters Treaty, ladies and gentlemen, over a period of almost 58 years, has served both the countries well, despite the fact that both sides have their reservations on this. But efforts to undermine the treaty by particular interest groups, I think, need to be discouraged by saner elements on both sides, and media should create awareness in the general masses of the rationality of the treaty and the importance of cooperation in utilizing water resources. This is perhaps the only instrument between the two countries that has stood the test of time, even, as I said, during full-fledged wars between India and Pakistan, the treaty remained effective. Suggestions to improve certain aspects of the treaty could always be welcome, but these should be left for better days when the two countries have achieved a certain element of detente. We can't live in the past. The two countries have suffered a great deal because of their hostility and mistrust and need to move on for the sake of better future for their citizens. The Indus Waters Treaty has provided a platform for cooperation. It was brokered after considerable effort of the World Bank and perhaps sincerity of purpose of the leadership from both sides. Not only that the treaty should stay, it should in fact be used as a basis for future cooperation. The treaty provides opportunity for future cooperation and joint management of the waters, and it is disappointing to note that since the signing of the treaty, no projects have been undertaken under the provisions of future cooperation. It is no secret that the available waters of the Indus system are not being utilized judiciously by both the sides. The water visibility vis-a-vis the growing demand is on the decline, and every drop of available water has to be utilized in the best and most economical manner. However, as we have learned today, neither country at this moment has enough resources to harness the full potential. It is therefore imperative for both sides to combine their resources and expertise to benefit from the opportunity. Every problem, in my opinion, is an opportunity. This is not only important for the progress and prosperity of Pakistan and India, but diffusion of tension among these two nuclear neighbors could be catalyst for the progress of the entire region. Some of you who hear me regularly may be tired of the fact that whatever topic is given to me, I end up by emphasizing on putting our own house in order. I became familiar with this water issue rather late, I think in the early 2000s, when Bahria Dam was under construction. I take the credit of introducing sub-meter resolution satellite imagery to Pakistan, and the first time I purchased that was not because of any military installation, it was of under construction Bahria Dam. And at that time it was very exciting to even be able to read the names of the workshops and buildings out there. And since I was involved at that time with Foreign Office and the Indus Waters Commissions, I know that we had a very good case ready for international arbitration in 2003 or very early in 2004. But unfortunately, the case was delayed at the highest level because, as was the point was raised by Raza, at that time we were trying to find out-of-the-box solutions, and we did not want to offend India and even United States. So by the time we went for arbitration in 2005, India had completed the Bahria project, and we were offered with a fait accompli. We couldn't get much out of it. Later on, sometimes back, I was member of a panel to discuss the Kishan Ganga Award in a local think tank, where the team that represented Pakistan's case at Hague, the Permanent Court of Arbitration, was also invited, and it included Dr. Gregory Morris, the technical expert of Pakistan on that issue. And it was very clearly highlighted. Again, Chairman Wabda talked about the importance of data. We lost the case because we could not provide the desired data. Our own local data we were not able to provide to the court. Whether we went there without preparation or we didn't want to, I leave it to your imagination. And another very interesting fact noted in that presentation was when your expert was giving the presentation, which was of course prepared for arbitration, it very clearly said Pakistan occupied Kashmir on Azad Kashmir. While it is not consequential technically, and it probably did not have a bearing on the arbitration, but it does give the mindset and loyalty of the people who are representing you at international forums. IPPs have already been talked about. I'll not go into that. And to cut it short, I think we need some introspection. We need to do what we have done to benefit from the opportunity or the environment that was provided by the Indus Waters Treaty. We owe our green revolution of the 60s and 70s to this treaty, besides other reasons. To end on a hopeful note, I think the awareness is now there. We seems to be moving in the right direction, and I see a light at the end of the tunnel. But remember, raising dams, ladies and gentlemen, is a far more safer strategy than raising guns. Thank you very much.